The Vex Empire had won. The war that had lasted 73 days had resulted in the complete destruction of human military capability. Every human warship had been destroyed. Every defensive installation had been demolished. Every weapons facility had been obliterated. The Vex Empire, standing triumphant over the ruins of human civilization, prepared for the occupation and resource extraction that would follow. Empire Commander Vortax reviewed the final damage assessment and smiled with satisfaction. "Humanity is finished," he declared to his assembled officers. "Their military capability has been completely eliminated. The war is over. Earth is now open for conquest and colonization. Begin the landing operations." The Vex Imperial Fleet, numbering 847 capital ships, began their descent toward Earth. The occupation would be simple, unopposed, and thoroughly complete. What Vortax did not understand was that humanity had prepared for this exact moment 150 years in advance. What Vortax did not know was that humanity had hidden an entire military force inside the moon itself. The hidden fortress 150 years before the Vex assault, humanity had undertaken a project so ambitious that it had required diverting resources from every other development program. The project was designated Operation Lunar Fortress. The moon would be hollowed out. Not partially, but completely. The interior would be converted into a vast military installation capable of housing an entire fleet, weapon systems, and defensive infrastructure sufficient to defend against any conceivable threat. The project had taken 47 years to complete. The fortress had been occupied for 103 years. And during all that time, not a single indication of its existence had been detected by external sensors. The moon appeared to be what it had always been, a dead, airless satellite orbiting Earth. In reality, the moon was a warship. The moon was a defensive platform. The moon was humanity's greatest secret. And as the Vex Empire began their occupation landings, the moon began to open. The awakening in the deepest caverns of the Lunar Fortress, Admiral James Chen, commander of the Hidden Fleet, received the signal that the Vex occupation had begun. "All systems, initiate activation sequence," Chen ordered. "Open the fortress. Deploy the fleet." Throughout the moon, systems that had been dormant activated. Power systems came online. Weapons systems initialized. The vast interior of the moon, which had been sealed and hidden, began to open to space. The first opening was subtle. A section of the moon's surface that appeared to be ancient crater walls suddenly became transparent, revealing the vast interior spaces beyond. More sections opened. And more. The moon's surface, which appeared to be inert rock, was actually a sophisticated camouflage layer designed to conceal the fleet and installations beneath. As the concealment fell away, the scale of what had been hidden became apparent. The Lunar Fortress contained 2,400 capital-class warships, 8,700 support vessels, weapon systems of unprecedented sophistication, defensive platforms capable of protecting entire star systems, infrastructure designed to sustain a fleet for decades of continuous combat. Humanity's entire hidden military capability was revealed as the moon opened like a blooming flower. The Vortax realization Commander Vortax, who had been watching the occupation landings from his flagship, felt the moment when everything changed. His sensors suddenly registered the most massive energy signature they had ever detected. His tactical systems reported the appearance of over 11,000 human vessels, where sensors had previously indicated none existed. His communication officer reported in a shaking voice, "Commander, the moon is opening. The moon itself it's a ship. A weapons platform. Thousands of human vessels are emerging from inside the moon." Vortax stared at the tactical display in disbelief. What he was seeing was impossible. The moon had been constantly monitored throughout the war. The moon showed no indication of concealing anything. The moon was a dead, lifeless celestial body. And now the moon was opening, and an entire hidden human fleet was emerging from its interior. The reversal of the appearance of the Lunar Fleet transformed the entire dynamic of the war. Moments earlier, the Vex Empire had believed they had achieved total victory. The Empire had been preparing for an unopposed occupation. Now the Empire found themselves facing an enemy fleet that outnumbered them 13:1. The Vex occupation landings, which had just begun, were immediately caught between the Empire's attacking fleet and the emerging human fleet. The landing craft, designed for peaceful occupation, suddenly found themselves in combat conditions. Admiral Chen issued orders for the Lunar Fleet to engage. What followed was not a battle in the traditional sense. What followed was a systematic destruction of the Vex Imperial Fleet by a force that had every tactical advantage. The battle changes everything. The Vex Empire, which moments earlier had believed themselves victorious, found themselves systematically destroyed. The Lunar Fleet had been designed specifically for this scenario. Every weapon system had been optimized for combat against the Vex Empire's military hardware. Every tactical formation had been practiced for decades. Every officer and crew member had spent their entire career preparing for the moment when the moon would open and the hidden fleet would emerge. The Vex Empire, which had been confident in their victory, now found themselves in the worst possible position, surrounded by an enemy fleet of overwhelming superiority. Commander Vortax issued the order to retreat. But the order came too late. The devastation within 4 hours of the Lunar Fleet's emergence, the Vex Imperial fleet had been reduced from 847 capital ships to 247. The remaining Vex vessels retreated in complete disorder, no longer fighting but simply fleeing from an enemy they could not defeat. The Lunar Fleet did not pursue. The Lunar Fleet did not attempt to complete the annihilation. The Lunar Fleet simply maintained position, demonstrating that Earth was now defended by a force that the Vex could not overcome. The message was clear. The war was over. Humanity had won. The investigation, the revelation that the moon was a hollow warship containing thousands of human vessels triggered shockwaves across the galaxy. Every civilization that had monitored the human Vex war suddenly began asking the same question. What else had humanity been hiding? The Galactic Council initiated an immediate investigation into how humanity had constructed and concealed an entire military fortress inside the moon without detection. What they discovered was that humanity had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. For 150 years, humanity had been conducting a construction project of extraordinary scale while maintaining perfect operational security. The moon had been gradually hollowed out, internal structures had been installed, a fleet had been assembled, all without a single indication to external observers. The strategic philosophy when questioned about the Lunar Fortress, Admiral Chen provided an explanation that revealed humanity's strategic thinking. We understood 150 years ago that we would eventually face an enemy that threatened our extinction. We understood that conventional military approaches might not be sufficient. So we decided to build a fortress so vast and so hidden that it would represent humanity's ultimate defense against any conceivable threat. He paused. We chose the moon because it was the one place that an external observer would never suspect to contain a military installation. The moon is barren, lifeless, and has been monitored for centuries. No one would believe that the entire moon could be transformed into a warship. Chen continued with words that explained the scope of the commitment. For 150 years, we committed resources to a project that might never be needed. We maintained absolute secrecy. We trained crews for a conflict that might never occur. We did all of this because we understood that true security requires preparation for scenarios that seem unlikely to happen. The broader implications, the revelation of the Lunar Fortress forced the galaxy to reconsider fundamental assumptions about hidden military capability. If humanity could hide an entire fleet inside the moon, what else might be hidden in other celestial bodies? What other planets might contain secret installations? What other moons might be transformed into weapons platforms? The Galactic Council faced a crisis of understanding. The surveillance and intelligence systems that the Council had believed were comprehensive had been revealed as having massive blind spots. The unexpected consequence, the Lunar Fortress was never used again after the initial emergence. But its existence changed everything about how the galaxy understood military capability. Other civilizations, recognizing that they had been unprepared for an enemy concealing a fleet inside a celestial body, began investigating their own planetary systems. Some discovered that other civilizations had similar hidden installations. The Devon found evidence of a hidden fleet inside one of their moons. The Sereth discovered weapons platforms concealed in asteroid formations. The Coalition discovered that the most militarily significant installations in their space had been hidden from external observation. The galaxy, which had believed itself to understand the scope of military capability, suddenly realized that vast installations existed that the Council had never catalogued. The philosophical question, as civilizations grappled with the implications of the Lunar Fortress, a profound philosophical question emerged. What was the relationship between concealment and trust? If humanity had announced the Lunar Fortress when it was constructed, the Council would have immediately demanded its destruction or conversion to peaceful purposes. By concealing it, humanity had been able to complete the project. But concealment also created distrust. Once the fortress was revealed, every civilization wondered what else was being hidden. What other installations existed that had not been discovered? What other preparations had been made in secret? The Lunar Fortress, which had been designed to protect humanity, had inadvertently demonstrated that the galaxy's systems of mutual trust were fundamentally unstable. Commander Vortax's final report, the final report submitted by Commander Vortax to the Vex Empire, documented his analysis of the war's outcome. The Vex Imperial fleet was defeated not through superior tactics or equipment, but through a fundamental miscalculation about the scope of human military capability. The Empire believed that human military capability had been completely eliminated. The Empire was wrong. Vortax continued with observations that would reshape Vex military strategy. The humans had hidden an entire fleet inside their moon. The humans had maintained that fleet in absolute secrecy for 150 years. The humans had waited for the moment when the Empire believed victory was assured before revealing what they had been concealing. His final assessment was stark. The Vex Empire did not lose this war because we were outmaneuvered in combat. The Vex Empire lost this war because we failed to understand that an enemy can prepare for victory in ways that external observation cannot detect. The moon was a fortress we could not see. The fleet inside was a threat we could not anticipate. The humans were prepared for scenarios we believed impossible. The reformation of galactic security following the revelation of the Lunar Fortress, the Galactic Council underwent a fundamental transformation of its security framework. The old framework had been based on surveillance and inventory. The Council would monitor what civilizations possessed and restrict dangerous capabilities. The new framework had to accommodate the reality that civilizations could possess massive military installations that surveillance could not detect. The result was a transformation toward a different approach. Rather than restricting hidden capability, the Council would require disclosure of hidden capability. Civilizations would be obligated to reveal what they had concealed. Transparency became the new principle of galactic security. The monument 500 years after the Lunar Fortress emerged and transformed the war, a monument was constructed in the heart of the restored Lunar Fortress. The monument was not dedicated to military victory. The monument was dedicated to the nature of preparation and concealment. The inscription read, "Here, a civilization prepared in secret for 150 years. Here, an entire fleet waited hidden inside a moon while external observers saw nothing. Here, the war changed forever when concealment became revelation." This monument commemorates the moment when the galaxy understood that the greatest military achievement is not victory in battle, but the preparation that makes victory inevitable. The continuing secret 1,000 years after the Lunar Fortress emerged, a revelation suggested that the fortress was not the only installation humanity had built in secret. Declassified documents indicated that humanity had constructed similar installations in 7 other celestial bodies. 7 additional moons, inside 7 different star systems, each containing fleets and weapon systems comparable to the Lunar Fortress. Humanity had not hidden one superlative weapon. Humanity had hidden 8, and only one had ever been needed. Commander Chen's final reflection in his final address before retirement, Admiral Chen reflected on the 150-year preparation and the moment of revelation. "I was appointed commander of the Lunar Fortress before construction was complete. I spent my entire career preparing for a moment that I hoped would never come. I trained crews. I maintained weapon systems. I planned for scenarios that seemed hypothetical." He paused. When the moment finally came, when the Vex Empire believed they had won and began their occupation, I had one order to give: open the moon. Open the fortress. Emerge the fleet. One order, and 150 years of preparation came to fruition in a single moment. Chen continued with words that explained the philosophical foundation of the entire project. The greatest military achievement is not the battle you win. The greatest achievement is the preparation that makes the battle unnecessary. We did not win the war through combat. We won the war through 150 years of preparation that made our victory inevitable when we chose to reveal it. The historical reckoning 2,000 years after the Lunar Fortress emerged, historians examined the war that was changed forever when the moon opened. What they recognized was that the Vex Empire had lost not because they were militarily inferior in the moment of combat. The Vex Empire had lost because they had failed to understand that an enemy could prepare for scenarios that observation could not detect. The Lunar Fortress was not a weapon. The Lunar Fortress was an answer to a fundamental question. How does a civilization ensure its survival when external observers cannot detect its preparations? The answer humanity had provided was, prepare so thoroughly and maintain security so absolutely that the revelation of your preparation is itself a victory.